right, back to our top story now, where Vice President Kamala Harris, in a powerful acceptance speech on Thursday night, pledged a new way forward for all Americans as she formally accepted the Democratic nomination for president. Her address was a call for unity and a direct appeal to voters to reject Donald Trump. To delve deeper into the implications of her speech and the Democratic National Convention in Chicago, let's turn to our international correspondent, Adesua Osagi, who has been on the ground covering the event. Good day, Adesua. Let's get straight into it. Tell us a little bit about the main messaging on the DNC stage last night and how the speakers came together to frame Vice President, now Democratic nominee Kamala Harris.
Well, good day to you, Vimbai and Shaital there in the studio. Now, yesterday, they decided to show us that Kamala Harris would be a good commander-in-chief. They were portraying her as a strong woman. They were portraying her as Kamala the prosecutor, something that she had not leaned into in previous election cycles. We had her co-prosecutor, her co-worker when she was a prosecutor, come on stage. We had prosecutors, one who prosecuted Trump in New Orleans for refusing to rent to black people, housing discrimination, which is a federal crime here. We also had a prosecutor, I believe from New York, who also independently prosecuted Trump and Trump University for scamming students and getting away with $5 million in profit while veterans and policemen lost their housing and lost their life savings. So they were trying to show us Kamala, a prosecutor, versus Trump, a convicted felon. And that was the strongest message. They were showing Kamala with strength. It's very important to notice that even in her own speech, she did not focus on being a woman. She did not focus on breaking a glass ceiling. She did not say that this is historical because of my identity. She said this is historical because I am the right person and because of the importance in time. That they are saying that the Democrats are saying that Trump is a threat to American democracy, and so it's not about just Kamala as a person, it's also about voting against Trump and what he stands for.
All right then, but we're seeing the American reverence for their veterans. That was on display, full display last night. Now, how would you compare that to how we treat our military in Nigeria?
Honestly, there are so many comparisons and so many imagery and parallels to be drawn between this, what we've seen at the DNC and the Nigerian system. And for me, it was a moment for pause when we saw Representative Congresswoman Tammy Duckworth come onto stage. You know, she's a veteran. She's in a wheelchair. We saw all the veterans on stage that were representatives, and they were all Democrats. And I was looking at that and I was thinking, do we have that in the Nigerian system? Do we have reverence for our armed services? We have military men who are fighting Boko Haram, who are fighting insurgency in the north central. Do we see a soldier come and say he's going to run for office? In Nigeria, obviously, we have a very particular history with our military and democracy, and so it's not something that is definitely encouraged. However, when you see the reverence, when you see the respect that are given to people, members of the military, members of the army, even from the checking lines, if you go to the airport, they have a different line so they don't have to wait in line as long. I think that sort of reverence and that sort of respect for people who are putting their lives down to protect the country is something that is worth looking at and admiring, I would say. I thought that was a highlight last night, seeing those representatives come on stage and say that, you know what, we serve our country with our body, with our mind, and now we're doing it with our soul, and we feel that we are fighting for the soul of our nation. And I thought that was a very moving moment at the DNC last night.
And you're absolutely right, Adesua. And of course, here in Nigeria, the historical antecedent makes that relationship a little bit more complicated. But let's focus on some of the key takeaways from this convention. People have criticized the process in which Kamala Harris emerged as a nominee. I know some have gone as far as calling it a coup against Joe Biden. Do you feel the process was democratic?
Yes. Now, one thing that I will say is that when we talk about democracy, we can't only talk about elections. We must also talk about the process that leads us to that election. And, I was looking at, we had the roll call 2 days ago on Wednesday, where different states and the representatives of different states were officially pledging their delegates to Kamala Harris. Obviously, this was ceremonial, as there was already a virtual roll call before this, where all the delegates who were pledged to Kamala Harris already did so with the virtual roll call. However, it is a democratic process because we see that it is a transparent process. We do not have this in Nigeria, even when we have voting being done in the PDP primaries, for example, and in the APC primaries for president in the last elections. It was not done transparently. We can't see who is voting for what. They do not put their names to it and say, this is my candidate. In the APC convention, we had candidates stepping down in sort of a ceremony for our current president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu. However, we did not have a transparent process with knowing which delegates voted for who and why they did so. When we had that roll call at the DNC on Wednesday night, we had people representing their states saying, this is our state. For example, the governor of Illinois said that Illinois is the first state to have the 13th Amendment and the 16th Amendment implemented. 13th Amendment was ending slavery, and the 16th Amendment was giving women the right to vote. It is historically significant then for Illinois to be the state in which the first black woman is given a major party ticket to run for president. And and we had a state coming out. You have the Cheese State, you have the states of Great Lakes, and people are proud of their states, and they're explaining their reasoning for supporting Kamala Harris, and they're putting their names to it, they're putting their voices to it, they're telling us the exact number of votes that is going on, and we don't have that process in Nigeria. And so calling it a coup against Joe Biden seems unfair, because Joe Biden himself is the person who very unexpectedly came out very early on and said he is fully backing Kamala to be president. So the coup is that there was a lot of pressure, internal pressure from the Democratic Party for Joe Biden to step down. But also, I don't know if you could call that a coup. We have experienced real coups, so I feel like even when you do have a palace coup, when you have coup from the inside, it's true forcing. It's not pleading with someone or begging them or trying to convince them to step down. That I don't think that is what makes a coup. I think coup implies that there is a force at hand, and I do not think that Nancy Pelosi walked anywhere with a gun in hand and told Joe Biden to tweet out that he's not going to seek re-election. So I do think that coup is rich language, and it's usually language used by people who do not know what a real coup is. But is this a democratic process? Yes. Now, and I think the importance here is the transparency. I think that's a lesson that we can take home. Even within our House of Reps or our Senate, let's know who is voting for what. Let them put their names behind it. I think this idea of a voice vote in our Senate or in our House of Reps in 2024, it's abhorrent. It's a bit of a joke at this point in time. Do the A's have it? Do the nays have it? You have electronic voting on your desk. Let's know who votes for what legislation.
We can see that you're at the Trump Towers there in Chicago, just right behind you. Well, let's talk about how Trump is reacting to day 4 of the DNC.
Well, yes, we came out here to the Trump Towers on our last day of coverage of the DNC, because everything has wrapped up now. And the first day, they were putting Kamala's name on the Trump Tower. Somebody was projecting her name onto his tower. I'm sure he did not enjoy that one bit. He went on a bit of I can't call it a tweet rampage, because it's on Truth Social, it's on his own social media platform, but he did send out about 40 to 50 posts within an hour speaking about Kamala Harris. It also seems that his polling numbers are not doing very well in Georgia, and he's now cozying up to Kemp, who is a governor that Trump is not known to like at all. I do not think he's responding well to this, particularly because the Democrats are calling out something that people have said that this is about vibes, this is not about policy. But one thing we saw on the stage yesterday is that they are actually calling out the policies. They are calling out abortion. Trump was the president who put the Supreme Court justices on the bench that removed Roe v. Wade. That is a policy matter. Trump has come out to say that he is proud of what he did. Being an anti-choice is a policy matter. Another policy matter and another important thing is the Supreme Court, and this is policy matters. Project 2025. Project 2025 is the Republicans, or a conservative arm of the Republican Party, putting their policies on paper. And that is actually that was what really, I would say, did him in terms of the undecided and the moderate voters. because Project 2025 is very unpopular policy. Now, Trump says that he did not write it. However, he does have, part of the people who wrote it are his supporters. The writer of Project 2025 has a book, and his vice presidential candidate, J.D. Vance, wrote the foreword for that book. So he can't really separate himself from Project 2025. So yes, I think like Trump is not handling this very well. I think he came out and he called Barack Obama Hussein again, which I think is a throwback to old times. So I don't think Trump is having fun.
Adesuwa Osagi, live from Chicago. It's been a fantastic 4 days of coverage with you. Thank you so much for keeping us updated with the blow-by-blow action. We look forward to having you back in Lagos.
You, guys.
Have a wonderful day. Thank you so much. You watch.